Definitely, 'cause that is one thing as well that I wanted to get into about the evolution stage and how you've been able to cope with such a rapid change in evolution. And even before that, I want to get into kind of how and why you started Ears to the Ground. Was it a kind of
Well,
natural thing to you to start mixing music and sports together, or was it like did someone kind
well,
of spark the imagination to you? How did it all start for you?
we have to go a step further back,
Okay.
and it's something that you and I both share a love of, and that is hip hop.
Mm.
And back in the 90s, the early 90s,
Hmm.
I graduated from Manchester University, and I became, I had every possible career opportunity in front of me with
Hmm.
my degree. So what did I choose? I chose to be a hip hop promoter.
Yeah.
So I started putting on nights in Manchester and booking artists, and we did shows with um, everyone from the Far Side to Gangstar to
Amazing.
yeah, and then we brought in all the jazz greats. So it was Roy Ayers, Gil Scott Heron, Eddie Harris, Les McCann. There was the Pharoah Saunders. So it
Wow.
was that time. It was the last jazz hip hop kind of wave, and it was when jazz and hip hop was all fusing, and it was a very exciting time musically. And in fact, there was a huge amount of live music involved in that. We were bringing in live musicians and jazz players with hip hop artists and MCs in clubs all around Manchester. We put records out at that time, and I think that's really what drew me to your work,
Mm. Thank you.
to the orchestra, because I
Yeah.
always enjoyed that friction and fusion
Mm.
between MC culture and live music. That was something that I really loved, and I always thought that there's such a lineage from hip hop and MCs and freestyling from freestyle jazz. That improvisation moment is so shared by those that lineage of music. So hip hop was where it all began for me. Strangely enough, the first show I did that was my own show was J. Rue the Damager
Wow.
um, in Manchester, and I pretty much filled every club in the city. I just hired the clubs and booked an artist, and yeah, it was a great time. It was a really amazing time, and I carried on just being a promoter, putting on shows, and then I I went into the festival space and created a festival in Manchester. But really, it was kind of my love of music that got me into this. It was
Yeah.
really my love of music. And what happened was that I was putting on all these shows and these events, and brands started coming to me and saying, "Can we have one of those, please?
Mm.
We love that energy. We love what you've created there. Can you do one of those for us?" So then I started working and and then we set the business really to work for businesses like Orange, mobile
Mm.
phones, and Smirnoff, and
Yeah.
we put on shows, music shows, primarily for those guys.
That's
Um,
amazing.
and the next step after that was just I'm doing the super sharp, quick version,
Yeah.
but just to let you know how I got into sport was the way the Ear to the Ground moved into sport was we started working for many years later for Umbro.
Mm.
Umbro came to us and they wanted to use music to promote their partnership with Manchester City. The Sheikh had just
Yeah.
taken over. It was a new era for Manchester
Oh
City.
wow, at the right
And
time as well.
they came to us and said, "What's our strategy? What we want music to be part of it." So we went and worked with the Gallaghers, Oasis brothers,
Uh-huh.
and we went and worked with Doves and Badly Drawn Boy, and they were all big Manchester City fans. So we brought them round to the table, and we created this whole strategy around football and music.
Mm.
And no one had ever really done that before. And off the back of that, we worked with Umbro and Nike on the launch of the England shirt with Kasabian. And I don't know if you know the story, but the concept was that we launched the England shirt away.
Mm.
And the way that we did that was Tom, the lead singer of Kasabian, walked out on stage in Paris in the New England away shirt. And of
Wow.
course, 3,000 Frenchmen booed as
Yeah.
loud as they could,
I can
which was
imagine.
exactly what we wanted, because we made the film of that and we put it all over the media, and we did billboard ads, and we did 48 sheet posters, and it won a lot of awards. And that was in 2010, and that was really our first sport project. And now 80% of the work is sport, but it's still very much about culture and music.
Mm.
Still about music and working with music artists, but it crosses into lots of different areas.
Have you had any personal favorite sort of moments or events that you had the chance to work on in the years that Ear to the Ground?
Oh, there's been so many.
Yeah.
There's just been so many. So many. there's been so many. It's hard to pick them out. I could go for the really, really big ones, but sometimes with the really big ones, you have less of a role.
Yeah.
So we've been involved in the Euros for the last 2 Euros heavily. We were involved. Oh, the highlight for me, without a doubt, I just suddenly remembered. The highlight for me was, without a shadow of a doubt, we set up an office in Brazil to work on the Olympics and the World Cup.
Wow.
And I was in Brazil for 4 weeks in Rio, which is my favorite city in the world. And the World Cup was on. And we were working with Nike, we were working with English FA, we were working with some Brazilian brands. And it was heaven. We got to see football games. We got to do all this. That was the highlight of my entire career. That was the highlight. And that was something I wanted to do for probably 5 years before. And I remember being sat in a coffee shop in Carnaby Street.
Yeah.
And it was about 2000. And it was announced that the World Cup and the Olympics were happening. That one of them had already been announced, but they announced the second one. And I was sat in a coffee shop in Kingley Court. And I thought, we're going to Brazil. We're going to set up a business in Brazil, which was a ridiculous thing to say, a nonsensical thing to come up with. But then 5 years later, we were there.
There we go.
We were right in the thick of it. And it was a wonderful, wonderful experience.